This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. We have an awesome guest on this episode. If you've been on TikTok searching fantasy football content over the past couple of years, I have no doubt that you've seen his work. Now a contributor at Yahoo Fantasy. I'm excited to welcome and introduce to you all Joel Smyth. Welcome and thrilled to have you on the show, my man.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's crazy seeing the intro, Matthew Berry's face, and then it pans to me. That's insane. So happy to be here.
Well, yeah, it's awesome to see. Again, I've noticed your work over the last few years, and it's cool to see, you getting into the space and doing what you're doing. Because I mean, we made a big impact on TikTok, and obviously Yahoo found out and saw that. So I'm excited to share your story, share your journey, inspire some people out there, and obviously help people find a great analyst because you've been doing some awesome stuff. Now, for viewers that may be unfamiliar with your work, can you share what you're up to at Yahoo Fantasy and on your own platforms in 2026?
Yeah, have a full-time job at Yahoo now, which is awesome. Just doing fantasy football work for there. So I'm an analyst, but primarily for social. So I'll go on their podcast. I'll also write a decent amount, but the main thing will be those social videos for Yahoo's page and my personal page still too on the side. But that'll be mainly in July and August is going to be the big one. I'll have about like 100 short form videos coming out over that 2-month span before draft season. So it'll be a lot of work, but looking forward to that. So I'm writing right now if you want things early on, but once July comes around, you can see my face on there a little bit more.
Nice. Obviously, a lot of work to be done. Yahoo is just just an incredible platform in fantasy. It's been such a leader in this space for in this industry for so many years. It's awesome to see some of the new faces over there and fresh faces doing amazing things. So we'll talk a little bit more about that opportunity in a little bit. But first, you have to have a love for fantasy for sports, but usually before that it comes. It's a passion for sports. Can you share a little bit about your, just growing up, finding sports, loving sports, and maybe mention some of your all-time favorite athletes across the sports spectrum?
Gotcha. I grew up playing everything. Grew up in Indiana for the most part. Was born in Ohio, but big sports place, the Midwest. So played baseball, basketball, but football was always my personal favorite. Loved all of them, but loved football as the number one, especially like getting later on to middle school, high school, all that sort of stuff. So always a huge sports fan and loved watching sports. I got into fantasy. As far as I can remember, I think like on the top of my head, it was probably when I was like 7 or 8 with my dad. We just had like a little family league and that kind of spread to once I got of age, like 6th grade, 7th grade to friends. And then my home league has been going since I believe my sophomore year of high school. So been a decent bit now, but yeah, love that. I played quarterback growing up. So I'm not the tallest dude in the world, like 5'11". So I always thought like my path is Drew Brees. He's a Purdue guy. So grew up in Indiana close by. I was like, maybe I can be Drew Brees one day, but loved him, loved like Ken Griffey Jr. in baseball, basketball. I'm a LeBron guy. So love all those guys.
Well, I mean, that's fair. I mean, I'm an MJ guy for sure growing up when I did, but I am a Seattle guy. So you mentioning Griffey on this show is it's always a good thing. What an incredible player. But I love that kind of stuff. Now, as a fan, give it like an all-time favorite moment.
I would say in terms of all-time favorite moment for fantasy specifically, I would even say Todd Gurley in 2017 was one of my first like home league wins. It was the second year and it had Todd Gurley halfway through the season. And at that point from the rest of the year was when he was just ripping off 30-point games every single time. So in the championship, I remember he had that like big 40-point performance. That was probably one of my favorite moments. And then 2024 one with George Kittle on like the last play of the game. It was like Monday night, Sunday night, maybe, but like fourth quarter final drive and they hit Kittle over the middle for 15 yards to win me a championship. So those moments like stick out to me in fantasy.
Gotta love it. You bring up like a Todd Gurley. What a crazy, career. What a just a short window, but just as dominant as anybody, in NFL history. I mean, he was such a special player. In fact, there was this event once upon a time in fantasy. It was the National Fantasy Football Convention. It was put on by like Tony Romo's cousin. It was down in Dallas. It was like 2017 or something like that. And they put together this the quirkiest event, but they had all kinds of NFL athletes there, old and new. I mean, Patrick Mahomes was there. Todd Gurley was there. They had like a pre-conference like party and stuff. And you guys just hang out with all these guys. I remember like opening the door for Zeke and stuff, for Ezekiel Elliott, and it was just a weird event. And a lot of people were there. I know Matthew Berry was there, and the fantasy footballers were there, and just all kinds of different industry analysts and stuff, but mixed with athletes. And I got to, I got a picture with Todd Gurley. It's fun to meet those guys. But when you mentioned Todd Gurley, yeah, you're right. And just what a special player. And he definitely won a lot of people fantasy championships.
Yeah, for sure. He was a big player. We go dynasty now. So I have my dynasty guys that I love. But in terms of like the redraft, he was one of my favorite fantasy players ever.
Nice. Okay, so you discovered the game early on. What was it that you really loved about fantasy? What was it that hooked you?
I love sports in general, but I'm also like a big nerd too. Big fantasy, like sci-fi nerd. So I think like mixing that, I was always good at math growing up. So like mixing those together, I used to like go to my brother's basketball games and like keep the stats.
Nice.
So those sort of things, or once we combine like the stats into just watching football and hanging out with friends, like that's the dream for me. So I think that's what really got me into it when I was a kid.
Love it. No, I can definitely relate to that. Like taking stats of your own games and that kind of stuff. I was a lot of people in the space obviously are kind of that minded when it comes to the numbers and stats, and I love that stuff. So do you remember when you first started, playing fantasy? Do you remember consuming content? Do you remember some of the earliest analysts or resources in fantasy that you discovered?
The original one, once I started getting like really into it, was like the OG ESPN podcast with Matthew Berry when he was still there. So like him, Mike Clay, Field Yates, Stefania Bell, like those four were like the main podcasts that I was really into. And then I started like branching out more on like Twitter, like early college, late high school, and started getting into more of like the fantasy football world and seeing kind of what's out there outside of just ESPN. But that was definitely the one that like still I'll listen to them every once in a while still and love listening to them. So that's where it's more nostalgic.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it's crazy once you discover, the fantasy industry and the community, there's just so many deeper layers of content creation, so many brands out there that are doing amazing things, beyond the host sites and the normal sites out there. Right after this, though, we're gonna take a little break, and we're gonna dive into more about your just experience playing this great game and talk a little bit more about your home league. All right, so you mentioned your home league. Gotta know about that. So talk about this, the main league, the one league you got to win.
Oh, it goes back to, I said, like sophomore year high school, like 12 really close friends from my hometown. Love it to death. We are insanely into it. Like from the get-go, we were already just like over the top about everything. But each year that goes by, especially now that we kind of live all over the country, like it keeps getting more and more serious. I love just the fact that it keeps us together. But the punishments are a big thing. We like record everything. We have Google Sheets for everything. We have so many like different league history and traditions. We always go to like Applebee's dressed up in suits, at least more so back in the day for draft day. We have our own like little podcast that we just send into our group chat for 10 people, that sort of thing, where we just go all in to make it more than just like a Sunday thing. Like we're just constantly talking about it.
Love it. Well, yeah, definitely shout out your commissioner. Like, obviously, that commissioner is pretty dedicated.
Yeah, it's awesome. The punishments are a little scary sometimes, but they're a lot of fun. And we have like a trophy. We have like rings, all that sort of stuff, but we're not playing for money. It is just glory in avoiding that last place punishment, which I think is like what fantasy is at its best.
That's the pure pride. Yeah, when there's no money on the line and you have a league that's engaged and having fun, it is when it's definitely at its best. Can you share any of those punishments? Is there one thing that's done every year? Is it a variety? Are things that are done that you can't share? Like, talk to me about those punishments.
It gets as bad as like tattoos. Like we've had tattoos before. We've had some permanent things before. Lots of like really embarrassing things. So it gets to that level, and we try to like get creative with it, go outside of the box, but it'll get to that level of seriousness.
Oh my gosh, I love it, love it. Now, when it comes to rivals, obviously I love rivalries in fantasy football, whether it's the home league, an industry league, or everything in between. Do you have one person you got to beat when you face them?
For sure. There's a few, but there is one, my friend Palmer. Maybe he'll
Okay.
listen to this. Freshman year roommate in college, one of my best friends, and love him in fantasy. We are rivals. We do hate each other. We trade with each other pretty constantly, but we have rivalry week in week 1 every single year. And sometimes the last week, sometimes kind of like the middle in week 8 or 9. But we do like start off every single year. Like I will play him in week 1, which I love. And that was like when we started getting like super into fantasy. Like when I first started like doing the extreme and a little more like the research side was like that freshman year of college when it was just like us two in the dorm. So it means more. We had those matchups where it was just some insane games. I remember my freshman year of college, it was 2017 to date me. This was Kareem Hunt, Monday Night Football. I was down by like 20 points. He like fumbles maybe twice, at least once to like start off the game, and everyone's like making fun of me. And then he goes on to score like 30 points in his like first ever game, and I win. And like just moments like that, especially like in a dorm room in college, are like so fun.
Yeah, that memory is easy for me to recall because there's a lot of hype around Kareem Hunt that year. And he did not start off well, but he had an incredible game, an incredible rookie season for sure. Do you have an all-time favorite moment just playing this great game, or any favorite moment associated with fantasy sports or fantasy football?
I think just any moment. We have like draft trips now just to kind of get back together on like draft weekend. Any of those type of trips and us getting together for like the parts that keep us together as friends. Like we're obviously going to hang out and other things, but we talk a lot because of our fantasy league group chat and because of our like draft trips and things like that. So I think that's like the biggest thing that stands out to me.
Yeah, it's the camaraderie, it's the connection. That's what it's all about. That's my passion for this game is just everything that the league can do for you. That's outside of the what happens on the field. So gotta love that. You mentioned Todd Gurley, like as one of the all time favorite fantasy players. Anybody else on your on your mind when I ask who's your all time favorite fantasy football player?
Who right now I would say Jamar Chase probably because I have him on my dynasty league team. So he's just incredible to watch every single week and have a blow up game whenever I need it is what it seems like. Loved Ezekiel Elliott back in the day. Loved like Mahomes when he first started off. I'm not a really big Mahomes guy now as a fan, but early on, I drafted him when he was a rookie, when he was a sophomore, his first year starting, when like it was super late. It's the last pick of my draft, and he becomes the quarterback one. So I'm like, all right, this is my guy. So those guys are the ones that I really love.
Yeah, I'm obviously Mahomes. That season where he first started, I mean, it was one of the all-time legendary bargains in fantasy. So obviously, I love your start with the game. Obviously, with the connections, with the friends, and having a league like that. I mean, it sounds pretty special. I certainly can relate to that. What was it that inspired you to get into content creation?
It's a long story. So my
We're
rant.
here. Let's go.
I first started off. I always loved sports, but one of my big mistakes in college was I guess I just didn't see it as realistic in terms of the sports world. Like I took a couple like sports marketing classes and sports management and thought about like coaching for a while and was like nothing was perfect. So I didn't necessarily like dive fully in, but I got super into DFS as a freshman in college. It was back when DFS was a little bit easier. We got super into it, was creating like models in my dorm room and doing stuff like that to like have fun with it. And ended up starting like writing for Dynasty Nerds, if you know them. As I believe a sophomore in college, maybe junior in college is when I started writing for them, and eventually like found myself as a senior, like late senior year. It was after an organization had finished that I've been working with for a long time that I loved, and it was kind of like a full-time job, and it was an incredible job. So I kind of was like, why am I not chasing after something like that for my full-time career? Like, am I really wanting to go into like PT at the time was the choice. And PT's great, but I knew that I wanted to kind of go all out into the sports world, whatever that meant. So it was like late into senior year of college that I switched over, did a bunch of different random jobs. eventually in internships, and eventually landed an entry-level position at NFL Network. So just doing fantasy research for them, which was awesome. Such a fun job. Not the greatest pay, but a really fun job. And it was fun to meet people and do that sort of stuff. And then after a year or two there, it was a lot of research, a lot of really fun findings, a lot of work. And I had so much data, research, content, and I wasn't doing anything with it outside of giving it to people for shows, and 10% of it would get used. It's just how it is. But I had so much left on the cutting room floor that I kind of just started making random videos. I tried like doing Twitter stuff in the past. I was still writing for different sites, but I wanted to do it in a new way. And that ended up just being through TikTok videos. So that's why it started, was I just had so much info and nowhere to do anything with it outside of like the 10% going into these shows. I was like, I'm doing all this work and it feels like it's not being used. So I'm just going to start using it myself. And that's kind of how it started from the beginning.
What did you, deciding to go with TikTok? What were you thinking at that time in regards to where it was going to take you? Obviously it was kind of, a newer platform for this type of growth. Obviously it's been incredible for you with how much, your page has been followed and all that stuff. But like, what were your expectations? Or was it just kind of, just off to the side to see what happens?
The second part for sure. I wish I started earlier. I had no expectations going into it. And I did try to make it like, I never thought that that could be an actual path to a job. It was more like practicing for like potentially being on TV or an analyst one day. It was more just like practicing at home, and whatever happens, happens. I never knew that there could be like money out of it or actual like following, anything like that, or I didn't expect that. So it was always more, TikTok was a more strategic purpose, and because I wanted to do videos. I had different calls like networking stuff and right out of college and early on in career, just like talking to people. And it was lots of really good advice. And part of that was Twitter's probably not the area right now if you have 0 followers. And I felt like I was posting some good stuff on Twitter and probably had like 1,000 followers after years. So it wasn't like going really anywhere. So I was trying to do something new. And that was one of the biggest pieces of advice, especially in fantasy football. It's such a saturated environment. So much is already done. If you're just doing the same thing that everyone else, if you just tweet out your starts and sits and everything like that, it's not necessarily going to get you anywhere. So there was a lot of different things that I had creatively and idea-wise, research-wise, but also the platform was part of that as well, where TikTok was a new platform. There was fantasy people on there. I didn't necessarily watch fantasy football content on TikTok, believe it or not. Like before that, like the videos that I saw, I was like, oh, like that's not necessarily what I would want to do. So I kind of just did something completely different on TikTok when it was a few years in, but still, a newer platform, and started off that way.
Yeah, newer obviously to fantasy content creators getting on there. So awesome stuff. And to talk about your, your experience getting discovered, by Yahoo on TikTok.
Yeah, a lot of like the brands have been like looking for content people to do like videos for them on the side for their pages. And Yahoo just kind of took it to another level where they were creating a position of that's your job, basically. Like you'd be an analyst, but instead of, hey, we'll pay you to do one video for us a week, like a bunch of these random sites, we're going to pay you to be an employee, and then you'll do that. So I think that was where the original idea started with. I had a couple of friends in the past from NFL Network that I knew that like moved over to Yahoo, and they're like, it's awesome over here. We love it. They've been talking about you. Would you like be open to like talking to them? I'm like, yeah, of course. So I never thought anything like that would happen, especially anytime soon. So when I found out that they were interested, had quick call, and happened all pretty fast because this was last August. So I want to say they reached out like early August, and I was starting before September ended, or before August ended, before September started. So it happened over like a 2-week span because it's draft season. Like they want, content right now. So it all happened super fast, but it was awesome experience so far, and awesome to go through that whole process.
That's amazing. Yeah, talk about the team at Yahoo and your experience with them so far.
Yeah, it's been great. One of my guys, one of the social people I used to work with at NFL Network, is now my social manager at Yahoo. So that's fun just because we like already knew each other. We have like rapport and chemistry, feel like we kind of understand each other and like what we want, what we're working toward, all that. So we work together great. And then the other analysts have been awesome. Like Matt Harmon, Justin Boone, I like talk to every once in a while, especially Matt is like the guy that I'm like, if I'm ever on the podcast, it's, with Matt. So they've been awesome and are incredible at what they do. Like I'll never be as good of a ranker as Justin is, but it's been fun to get to know them and just like see some of their work.
Well, great people, in
Yeah.
and out of the industry. I mean, they're awesome people. So it's just cool to see the team that they've, that's been assembled over there. Now, obviously, for consumers, I love sharing new resources and analysts that help, just to help people win championships because winning in fantasy is fun. So, can you describe a little bit about your approach to analysis? What makes it, unique, a little different?
Yeah, it's grown for sure over the years as I've learned and researched new things. A lot of the times what I like to research is things I don't necessarily like know the answer. Like sometimes I'll have an idea or like sometimes there's like, oh, I'm trying not to have confirmation bias. And a lot of times it is like, oh, wait, that is not what I thought the numbers would say. So it's a lot of those sort of things. And just a different way of looking at like what's not in the industry. Last year, I would say like a good example of that is for my draft guide. Like my favorite edition was basically creating a points per game list from 2025 with all of the context considered. Did this guy leave in the first quarter because he got injured? Did this guy like play a couple games through injury? Did he not have Joe Burrow as a starting quarterback for these weeks and had Jake Browning? Are we really counting that against him when we're looking at 2026? And that's no longer a situation, coaching changes, all that sort of stuff. So kind of laid out, hey, this is what actually happened last year for what matters for 2026 drafts. If this guy was only good because, say, like Jake Ferguson this year, Jake Ferguson shouldn't be drafted where he finished last season because his best weeks were the ones without CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is going to be on the team in 2026. So different things like that to kind of give new insight and just a new way of looking at it. I've gotten really into the coaching side of it these last couple of years and just how much it affects the game, how important it is to fantasy, especially coaching changes, whether it's good or bad. If you're in like a really good spot and you're switching to a different coach, like what we saw with the Eagles last year, where they just went super downhill, or with Jackson Smith and Jigba and Kubiak coming in. So different things like that, where there's so many important areas of fantasy that I feel like we don't necessarily touch on a ton, and so much important context. That's the main thing outside to answer your question is how can I add in research with the context to kind of have like a new way of thinking?
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm thinking, I'm listening to that. And I'm thinking, in understanding your content, your content. And I'm thinking it's not a surprise. It's not a shocker here that what you just described, the context, the details that that are outside of the stat lines. That really makes for great short form video content. So you know what I mean? Like, obviously with TikTok and stuff, like short little videos that just have those little, interesting nuggets. I can see why people, kind of, really rely on that type of content or intrigued by content to look deeper into it when you share those fine details, because that's not what's out there in a lot of cases. So awesome stuff. Obviously can't wait to see what you continue to do and how things continue to evolve for you. Now, with the 2026 season ahead, any players out there that you're just kind of excited to see what happens when they hit the field, good or bad? Like, any storylines or players that you just can't wait to see what happens?
Yeah, there's a decent bit. I was pretty in on Walker. It's probably my biggest miss last year. And I just love him I should have added him into like my favorite fantasy players. I just love him as a running back from an NFL perspective and think he's so talented. And just after his playoff run and now going to the Chiefs, I think there's so many things about the Chiefs offense and just changes in that offense that is really intriguing, especially for a bust player. Last season, some of the biggest upside hits, and I did another little research thing on this a couple of weeks ago that I'll post out in July or something, of how much of the busts from prior years that are still being drafted high bounce back really strong. Last year was Michael Pittman, Chris Olave, Travis Etienne was a big one. Like those guys that were huge hits, some of the biggest hits in all of fantasy. And it was because they're being drafted late because they're bust the year prior.
Yeah.
So Kenneth Walker can kind of fit into that this year. It'll be really interesting to see him in this offense. Another one is Adunze and Luther Burden in Chicago, and Loveland too. But Burden, like, I feel like there's such a polarizing side. Like, so many people love him, but there are like a couple concerns. And then Adunze, it's like, is he fully healthy? We don't know. I think he's a really good receiver when he's healthy. I don't necessarily think Caleb Williams is like the greatest for him. He has still overall net positive because the Bears, Ben Johnson, that offense, and Williams isn't bad. But Williams, there's a lot that steers towards, hey, he's a lot better for Luther Burden than he is for a Dunze style of play. So I would say those two at the top of my head, as well as some of those later round rushing quarterbacks.
I love it. No, I mean, I'm with you with Ken Walker. I mean, such a talent. Got to, obviously watch the start of his career with Seattle, and take us to a Super Bowl. So hats off to the the Seahawks, go Hawks. And Ken Walker was just such a huge part of it, and his talent is just it's there. Not a lot of miles on the tires. So he's ripe for a great little run in Kansas City for sure. So with all this, this experience, loving the game from the league perspective, and getting discovered just because you're creating unique content, and the opportunity at Yahoo, and experience it with the NFL and everything. What's been the most rewarding part of this journey for you so far?
That's a really good question. I feel like sometimes I don't think about it too much. I'm such like a success-driven person where like nothing is ever enough, but it's like always kind of like striving toward the next thing. So I think like the biggest thing is both the result and proving to myself that like I can like make it into a sports job. Like, I feel like so much, I try not to be discouraging when I talk about it with people. Like, I work with a lot of college students now and do career stuff with them. And I try not to be discouraging if you want to ask sports, because everybody, when I would ask about sports jobs in college, and I feel like that changed my mindset, was like, oh, well, you have to sacrifice everything. Like, you're not going to have a life. You're not going to have money. You're not going to enjoy, like, you're going to enjoy it kind of, but if you want to work in sports, your life is going to suck. It's basically like what everyone would talk about. And it was really discouraging that way. So I think kind of proving that I could do it, and also enjoying the process of it and enjoying the journey of it has been satisfying in that way, where I don't want to like necessarily do it for the money. That was never the point of any job for me. I don't necessarily want to do it for any success, although it's important for my job, but actually enjoying like what I'm doing. I'm really trying to focus on this summer with like content coming up. It can be a little burnout sort of thing. Like, it's constantly talking 24/7 throughout August, but really trying to like dig into, I don't care how well this video does, how much do I enjoy making it, how much do I enjoy liking it? Because when I first started off on TikTok, even, that was kind of my goal with like videos, is could I maybe have gotten more followers initially if I just had a bunch of clickbait and farming and wait till the end to see which player I'm talking about? Like, yeah, maybe, but that's not what I wanted to watch. So I was very focused on like, what content can I make that I would actually sit down and enjoy, and also enjoy creating. So I think that's, I don't know if that answered your question. I kind of went on a tangent.
No, that's a fantastic answer. Yeah. I mean, obviously, betting on yourself, and see, I love all of that. And you got to be authentic and enjoy what you do, no matter what you're doing in life. And so, burnout is certainly going to come when you're kind of faking it to make it, right? So I love all that stuff for you. Can you name, a few people, analysts, people in the industry, or maybe even content creators or others outside of fantasy that have had a big impact on you during this journey so far?
Yeah. The biggest one for me would be Garrett Price at Dynasty Nerds. Like, he was the one that like gave me my initial writing job. And it was like one of those where it's like, I don't know why you're hiring me to do this. And it was, part-time writing gig where you get like a couple bucks an article, but still, like, it was the first opportunity to like actually put something in my resume and actually work through what I thought I knew, and writing for the first time and for a legit site and all that. And they've blown up since that point too. Not that I had anything to do with that at all, but they've blown up and have been awesome. So I'd say Garrett Price, he's just been so nice and encouraging and does incredible work. Like, I respect him so much in terms of even his fantasy advice. So I would say like that's a really big one for me. There's a few people at NFL Network and at Yahoo even already. And a couple of the guys on the ESPN show, some guys that are producers, that sort of life as well, that just like talk to me and at least entertained a call to kind of like talk through things, get to know me, help, and just gave me really good advice. So I think a lot of people like that just like really stick out when looking back, and I'm thankful for it.
Yeah, it's awesome. It sounds like you did a lot of behind the scenes, reaching out to people to, pick their brains. I think that's a great tip for people that are,
Yeah.
wanting to do what you're doing. Do you have any other just kind of general advice or good nuggets for people that want to get more involved in sports content creation, in the fantasy space, that kind of thing?
I harped on this a little bit earlier. Not to name drop, but just to kind of give it some support behind it for the actual like meaning. But one of those ESPN guys connected me with Mike Clay for like 10 minutes, which I was like, don't know why you're talking to me. Thank you so much. I do not deserve to talk to you. But he's like, one of those guys for me is like a king. Like I wanted to be him in terms of the analytics and all that sort of stuff. And it was simple, the main piece of advice that he gave me, but it is like so valuable and it's been so like important for me specifically. And that was basically the saturation of the market, and you have to do something different that sticks out. Like I said, like if you're just going to post start sits with 0 followers and hope that people like it, it's not necessarily going to work. Like you have like Matt Harmon has like his reception perception. One of the reasons it works out so well, on top of him being incredible at what he does, is that is something that is no one has ever done before. I think like Coach Speak Index, for example, I don't know him personally at all. I think he's a great guy, amazing work, and something that like so important, but no one was really doing. And I try to do a combo of that in both my research, and just part of that was doing it on TikTok. But I think that is the biggest piece of advice is if you have an idea or can get creative and think outside of a box for something that's valuable, whether it's a new stat that's useful or a new thing related to the game that can be valuable for people, they're going to follow you and they're going to enjoy it. And then you can start, posting a bunch of things. But I would say focusing on that first is really big.
That's awesome. Yeah, outstanding advice, and Mike Clay. I mean, great guy. And obviously, a titan in the industry. He's doing obviously done rankings at ESPN forever, and he's just a great guy on and off the fantasy football field. I love it. And right after this, we're gonna talk a little bit more about the fantasy football community, and then get into some rapid fire questions. Learn a little bit more about you, behind the scenes. How much of the relationships you've made in the fantasy community meant to you thus far?
It's meant a ton. I like, not to be cliche, but I couldn't have done it without people that I know, and it's encouraging. And even outside of fantasy, but it's like sports in general. Like my first internship, my manager there, she was like so supportive, so encouraging, and it's like one of the best bosses I've ever had. And people like I talked about, like Garrett, my friend Aaron at Yahoo, my social guy, like people like that really push you to that level, encourage you, are there for you genuinely. They're not just there for you to, get something out of you. Not that that happens like super consistently, but they're like great people and great friends and care about you. And I feel like even just moving out to California, moving out to the West Coast, like that's the people I had. Like I knew no one out here, and it was just my work friends. Initially, it was my fantasy football people. So they mean a lot to me.
I love it. Now, this community it's an amazing community, great people, all around the fantasy space. Any plans for you to attend like live Scott Fishbowl events or the Fantasy Football Expo, anything like that?
I wanted to attend the Scott Fishbowl one. I'm partially busy on that day, and since I'm all the way in West Side, it's all the way in East, so it'd be like nearly 3 hours round trip. I know that sounds insane to people that don't live in LA, but since it's complete opposite sides, it'd be like an hour and a half drive. So I can't do it this year. I've heard lots of really good things about it. So I eventually want to go to a LA live one for Scott Fish, and would love to go. I see the Fantasy Football Expo stuff back there. Would love to go to that and to see Cannon and all that, but I don't think I'm able to this year, but sometime in the future when I have like a break in the schedule with content stuff, when I make it out there.
Love it, love it. Yeah, and it's one of those things why they moved it this year from August to July,
Yeah.
just to try to get ahead of the crazy content season. But you obviously got your hands full. You're gonna have a lot of work to do this summer, which hopefully helps people win a lot of fantasy football championships. But most importantly, my biased perspective is, I just want everybody who's creating content to help people enjoy the fantasy experience
Yeah,
even
exactly.
more, because that's what it's all about. And Yahoo has been doing it for years and years. So again, awesome to see you out there. Outside of fantasy football, what are some of your biggest interests?
Ooh, biggest interest. Like I said, like big sci-fi nerd. I'm big like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, like that sort of world. Love that. I've gotten super into beach volleyball. I played
Nice.
like early college a decent bit, but ever since moving out here to California, like that's what people in California do. So been playing a bunch of that, been getting better. So that's a ton of fun. Do different sort of intramurals. Obviously, fantasy football is in there, but reader, enjoy my coffee, enjoy working out a lot. So mix of
Okay.
all that.
Love it, love it. When someone says volleyball these days, I'm all in because my daughter's in club volleyball. It's kind of like I got this volleyball dad life that I'm living. It's been so
Oh
much
yeah.
fun. So phenomenal support, phenomenal sport. I love it absolutely. And obviously, California beach volleyball. I mean, hard to beat that.
Yeah. So
Uh,
fun.
let's do some rapid fire questions. Kind of GOAT inspired, greatest of all time. From your perspective, how about a TV show?
TV show, Survivor, easily. Don't even know
Okay.
why I had to think about that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Survivor, I am overly obsessed. It's actually scary. I've seen all 50 seasons twice. So it's an
Nice.
embarrassing fixation. I've made a couple of videos on TikTok about it, a couple that like did surprisingly well. So I would like consider like even doing like a podcast episode here and there on Survivor. But yeah, I'm obsessed with that show. I apply every year. Like it's bad. So that's number
Nice.
one.
I was just gonna say, have you applied? So okay. So
Yeah.
maybe someday we're gonna see you out there on Survivor. Gotta love that. Have an all-time favorite movie.
Star Wars. Yeah, gotta be. If I had to choose one, probably Revenge of the Sith,
Okay.
but Empire's up there, but Star Wars.
Okay. How about an all-time favorite sports movie?
Remember the Titans. Yeah,
Okay.
that's my number one easy there.
Okay. How about the GOAT video game of all time? What's the greatest in your opinion?
Ooh, going back to Star Wars, Battlefront 2, the OG Battlefront 2, new Battlefront 2, also incredible, but OG Battlefront 2 in the 2000s was amazing. And then I'm playing lots of Marvel Rivals right now. So if anyone's a Marvel Rivals fan, I play that a decent bit.
Okay, well, you're definitely dedicated to Star Wars. You gotta love it. How about a favorite meal? Whether it's a meal you've had, or like what's the ideal like last meal for you?
Hmm. I'm an ice cream addict. I love some banana bread that my mom makes, some
Okay.
manicotti that my mom makes. But I would say that big chicken wing fan. But yeah, if I had to choose like any food, if it counts, it would be ice cream, cookie dough.
Okay, cookie dough is the ticket, huh? All right. How about a beverage? What's the GOAT beverage? I mean, you mentioned coffee, just a second ago.
Yeah,
Is that it?
some coffees are up there. Yeah, your classic like blue Gatorade is what I grew up on. Like that was like the
Okay.
go-to drink. I don't drink soda, so I feel like it's a little more limited. But yeah,
Yeah.
I was a blue Gatorade lemonade kid growing up.
Okay. I love it. How about a favorite all-time artist or musician or band?
Hmm. Right now, I would say Noah Khan. I like Noah Khan a lot. All time. All time is tougher. I feel like I didn't listen as much music growing up. It was more so just like culturally, like whatever was playing on the radio.
Yeah.
So I would say more like, yeah, I guess Noah Khan. I love some sad music. I love like Louis Capaldi as well. I love Bryson Tiller. Not that that's sad, but I love some R&B as well. All that.
Okay. How about a favorite vacation you've been on?
Hmm. I've had two awesome like international ones that I've really loved. I went to Mexico as well and a couple other places, but Portugal and Guatemala have been my like two favorite. Did some volunteer stuff there, so it's super cheap when you do it that way, solo traveling. So I would say Portugal would be my number one. I went there for 2 weeks and served at a dog shelter. So I'm just surrounded by dogs. I love dogs, love cats. So I was just in Lisbon for 2 weeks and lived there solo, and it was sweet.
Nice. No, I love that. It's definitely on my list. How about for you, number one bucket list travel destination? Where do you want to go?
It'd be Australia. I
Okay.
was gonna go to Australia. I feel like I have so many random Australian things that I love, but I was going to go to Australia in college. And then my junior year was COVID, so I couldn't study abroad. But that was the plan. So I eventually want to make it out there.
Australia, that's it. All right. Well, great answers for sure. As we conclude things and wrap things up here, what are you most grateful for at this time?
Most grateful for? I would say my friends here in Los Angeles. Like any other time, like I feel like it took a while to make like those close relationships out here. Like in college, it took me a couple years to like kind of find those close friends. So I think my Los Angeles friends out here have just been like incredible people, incredible friends to me. So I need to show some more gratitude for them specifically, and just like the role they play in my life the last few years.
Yeah, obviously it's not easy to relocate and establish a life somewhere you're not familiar with. So that's huge. I gotta love that. Now, as we again wrap things up here, is there anything else that you want to share before we close things up?
Well, thank you to you first. Love what you do. This has been awesome. I'll start posting on TikTok, Instagram, all that starting July 1st is the goal. So get ready for that. Draft guide should be out early August, should be free. So that's the goal right now, is get all those out. And I haven't told anybody this, so I don't know how many people will see this part if they wait to the very end. But I am planning on doing a podcast this fall is the plan right now, and doing some more like fantasy content, do some of my YouTube stuff on there and have this weekly episode there. So some more content for audio listeners. I'm a huge podcast fan. Should have added that into my interest, but yeah, so doing some of that on my own and been learning about it, been playing a lot of stuff for it. So that's the plan right now.
Exciting news drop right there.
Yeah.
Can you share with listeners where to find you on social media specifically?
Yes. TikTok is just my name, Joel Smyth, Smyth for Smith. Twitter, I believe, is Fantasy Smith. I've been trying to get my username back of just my name. They won't let me. Instagram, I think Joel Smith as well. Maybe Joel Smith Fantasy. That is a full name. But those are the three big ones: is Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.
And then Yahoo everywhere, right?
Yeah. And then Joel Smith on YouTube as well. Go subscribe there. I'll be having more videos this year on that.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining me. This was a ton of fun. Best of luck to you in 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, best of luck to you as well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.